Proverbs 11 verse 30 Doctor prescribes action. Proverbs 11 verse 30 The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and one who is wise gains souls.
On August 31, 1967, the civil rights activist and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered a sermon/speech titled The Three Evils of Society. Before he explains the three evils, he states they are linked to stubbornness. Racism, materialism, and militarism are the three evils. During his speech, his one sadness is that members of his own weekly worship congregation would boo his teachings. They would tell him they see no result from his movement. They are unhappy with life's current situation, and more hostile action is needed.
I came to see this in a personal experience here in Chicago last summer. And all the speaking that I have done in the United States before varied audiences, including some hostile whites, the only time that I have ever been booed was one night in our regular weekly mass meeting by some angry young men of our movement. I went home that night with an ugly feeling. Selfishly, I thought of my sufferings and sacrifices over the last 12 years. Why would they boo one so close to them? But as I lay awake thinking, I finally came, and I could not for the life of me have less than patience and understanding for those young men. For 12 years, I and others like me had held out radiant promises of progress. I had about my dream. I had lectured to them about the not too distant day when they would have freedom, all here now. Amen. I had urged them to have faith in America and in white society. Their hopes had soared. They were now booing me because they felt that we were unable to deliver on our promises. They were booing because we had urged them to have faith in people who had too often proved to be unfaithful. They were now hostile because they were watching the dream that they had so readily accepted turn into a frustrating nightmare. And this situation is all the more ominous.
Revelation 22 verse 13-14 Blessed are those who wash their robes, so that they will have the right to the tree of life, and may enter the city by the gates. 15 Outside are the dogs, the sorcerers, the sexually immoral persons, the murderers, the idolaters, and everyone who loves and practices lying.
Ancient Israel were slaves of Egypt, then set free by God through Moses. Slavery no longer exists in the USA, but it does in other parts of the world. Oppression still exists in the USA, but it does all over the world. Just ask the people of Ukraine. Ancient Israel received many miracles from God, but booed the Lord many times. Some members of Dr. King's church booed him because they saw no progress. But Dr. King did preach one that God's word do as well. Don't return violence with violence, but always show love and grace. Everlasting life is a reward to those who love God and others. That is what Dr. King preached, and that is the Lord's desire as well. The children of God trust him for justice, and they do not desire warfare. Satan is full of hate and rage, and Christians should not practice hate or war. That is why Dr. King Jr. preaches that the language of riots is not heard. Violence against violence achieves nothing. That is not godly behavior. God bless you all. Jesus, the Prince of Peace, loves you, and so do I.
Samuel H., a bondservant of the Lord.
Proverbs 17 verse 13 One who returns evil for good, evil will not depart from his house. Zechariah 7 verse 9 This is what the Lord of armies has said, dispense true justice and practice kindness and compassion each to his brother. 10 And do not oppress the widow or the orphan, the stranger or the poor, and do not devise evil in your hearts against one another. 11 But they refused to pay attention, and turned a stubborn shoulder, and plugged their ears from hearing.